Okay, class, welcome back to English 1301. Let's talk about what's going on here. Now, a few days ago, I gave you this memo that I sent over Blackboard that said this week in memoir writing, and we're right in the middle of this week right now. I've attached the remaining handout for this segment of study under handouts on Blackboard. Excuse me, the handout corresponds to what's scheduled on your syllabus and calendar. It runs from pages 173 to 184, and it's called English 1301 Sketching, Drafting, and Revising. So that's what you should be doing right now, or if you haven't started yet, you'll be in the process of right now. Okay, this handout covers our work up until either, depends which class you're in, the 2nd or the 3rd of February. And then once again, it talks about me uploading a lecture that's going to illuminate this material, and that's what I'm doing right now, class, is illuminate this material for you. That's going to talk about memoir writing, and you're writing from recall essay. And I'm going to go over it right now. That's what we're here for. And it says that I want you to watch this lecture and take detailed notes, okay? And then, so once again, the deadline date for this essay class, if you're in section 21419 and 21441, the deadline for this essay is once again going to be the 8th of February, okay? Now, if you're in sections number 2074, 20756, and 20758, those are my online classes. That deadline, once again, is going to be the 14th of February. Now, when you turn in the essay, once again, it's going to be a visual portfolio, and, excuse me, class, let's go over this again. You'll simply turn it in through Blackboard Messages. Your work is going to be turned in through Blackboard Messages. In Blackboard Messages, your name will pop up. You're going to send me 3 items. You'll mark the first one first draft, and that's any sort of rough draft that you worked on, class. It's going to be a Microsoft Word document, okay? I just look at that process. Then you're going to send me the verification slip that you went to the Writing Center. I want to be able to see that. They'll give you one. And then the final draft. And then the final draft, once again, I will send you a copy of exactly what that looks like, okay? And that will once again complete your portfolio. And then the final draft is going to be, once again, what I get into and grade, okay? So, and put my comments on. So, real quick, that's what's going to be your portfolio, okay? That will be your portfolio. 3 items: first draft, final draft, Writing Center verification. Now, see where my notes are here that I just had, and all this paperwork that I am dealing with. Very good, class. So, let's talk about this. Class, I'm going to give you and send you a copy of this well in advance. But I just want to show you visually, this is what your essay is going to look like. It's going to look exactly like this, every essay this semester. So let's go over this. In the upper left-hand corner, you'll have your name, single spaced. You'll have English 1301. You'll have the section number for this class. Then it'll say spring 2023. And then it'll say my name, Welsh. All in the upper left-hand corner, single spaced. Then you'll put your machine in double spacing. Excuse me, you'll double space down. You'll center your title. You'll underline your title. Then you will indent and you're going to start your essay and you'll let it go from there. 12-point type, Times Roman, New Times Roman. If you're working on Microsoft Word, it'll set up the spacing for you. Look at the spacing between paragraphs. Everything here is double spacing. No extra spacing between paragraphs. You indent to start a new paragraph. I'm here to help you with this class. And this is what an essay is going to look like. The college level, university level. See how clean that is? 12-point type, Courier or New Courier, Times Roman, New Times Roman, 12-point type, indented paragraphs, double spacing. No extra spacing between the paragraphs. If you go to a second page, once again, your last name up in the upper right-hand corner, page 2, and then let the essay go. So that's all you need, class. And that, once again, is a correctly formatted college level, university level essay. Each one will be typed. And that's the way it's going to look. So, when you turn in your portfolio, Blackboard messages, once again, your name, slug it, first draft, final draft, writing center verification. Your final draft is going to look like this. Excuse me, class. And then I will get in there and I will grade your essay. Okay? In order for me to grade your portfolio, this is from the memo I sent you earlier in the week. You need to have it reviewed by the Writing Center at EPCC. So if it's an online class, you do it virtually. Okay? And it says here, I've attached the link that has all of the details about the Writing Center below. Please read and watch all the directions that are outlined at this site, and then there it is. www.epcc.edu Services Writing Center. And then I finish off with the memo sent. Here's hoping you're well. Now, if you're an in-person class, you can go in person. But even say, for example, you're on an online class and you want to go to in person at one of the writing centers on one of the campuses, you can do that too. You don't have to. Viverdi's got a great writing center, A1425 in the A building. A lot of times my students tell me if they go in there, they can get it turned around in a few hours, right? Then you take what the writing center has suggested, you use what you need, you leave the rest, you work on that final draft. Final draft will be sent to me either February 8th or February 14th, okay? And then I'll grade them, class. And then we'll start moving on. So, that's where we are. Now, let's do this, class. Let's talk a little bit. Let me help you with some possibilities about the writing process that you're in already. So, two great examples that I've sent you of memoir writing, Gary Soto and Annie Dillard. Both of those, that's what you're going to do for me. Both of those essays are focused. Gary Soto, I think, we're looking at maybe about a month of time that he writes about in his memoir. So that's more challenging. It's a great essay. When he was a runaway and went out to Glendale, which is right next to downtown LA. And he was a runaway at 17. And then at the end, the epiphany, he lets us know what he learned. Dealing with a lot of what he learned. Annie Dillard, a woman, a grown woman looking back on her life on what it's like to be 10 years old in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Throwing snowballs, hitting that dude in the head with the snowball. Both of them drop us in to the scene. So, and then let us know in the end what they learned. Class, the major challenge writers confront when they write from recall is to focus their essays. So be thinking about, how can I focus this? How can I get in and get out? How do I make this essay as simple as possible without making it too complicated? And you do that by focus. Focus on a time and a place. The major challenge writers confront when they write from recall is to focus their essays. When writing about a familiar and often very powerful personal experience, writers often have difficulty making objective decisions about the most effective method of presenting that experience to the readers. On the one hand, it is tempting to include every detail that comes to mind. On the other hand, because of the experience, is so familiar, they may overlook details that would make the story's relevance clear to the reader. Writers may also find it difficult to decide what details to include, where to begin, what order, and how to conclude it. So, the way to do it is by getting in there and doing it and drafting, and then you can frame it. And then it's your essay. That's the beautiful thing about writing. You get to choose. I'm going to help you with some ideas, class. Generating ideas for this essay. You may find that the minute you asked to write about a significant experience, so that's what we're looking for, is for you to write about a significant experience in your life. The very incident will flash to mind. Most writers, though, will need a little time to shake down their memories. I've been in class this week, in my in-person classes, and talking with students about them shaking down their memories about possibly what they want to write about. Sometimes it may be something from grade school. Maybe something happened in middle school. And we're going to talk about these different things. I had a student today in class, really intelligent young woman who said, "You know what, Mr. Welsh, can I write about my first heartbreak breakup?" I said, "Yeah." Once again, we have focus already, because I would suggest that she writes about it, can take us to that place to focus this essay, the date and time that she broke up with her boyfriend. And I asked her in class, who broke up with whom? And she said, I cut him loose. I said, all right. We can't control that. Sometimes someone will break up with you. Sometimes you'll break up with them. Sometimes you won't break up at all. I don't know. But I said, all right, write it. And I said, and she already said, Mr. Welsh, I'm deep into it. I'm sketching out. I said, good. You continue that journey. You get it to the writing center. How can I help? And then we talked about it in class. Most writers don't need a little time to shake down their memories. Probably what comes to mind when you first will be recent memories, but give long ago memories time to surface to be ready for any recollection that wells up unexpectedly. Because sometimes when you're busy thinking about something else will pop up and we don't know. Where does it come to? We don't know. But when it happens, that may be the essay that you want to write about. And then, class, once again, you can start hitting it. You can start, we're going to talk about that in a minute. This is just my current journal. You can start hitting it. You can start getting it down. You know what I mean? You can start sketching out some of those things. What do I want to write about? Why do I want to? How do I want? And then you give yourself permission, once again, class, to write. You give yourself permission to, however you want to do it, class. But once again, you start sketching those things out. You start hitting it on the page, class. Hitting it on the page. When a promising one surfaces, a memory, write it down. Maybe the start of your paper. And then in class it says try brainstorm. Brainstorming is a good way to jog your memory. To jog your memory. When you brainstorm, you try to come up with as many ideas as you can without any thought for the form or practical applications. You just jot down whatever comes to your mind for a certain amount of time and see where the thoughts lead you. So that's fantastic. Set your phone or your alarm for a half hour. Say, I'm just going to sketch for a half an hour. In class, when you're doing that, be good to yourself. Just write as fast as you can. Give yourself the time to write. And then once again, if you're worried, don't worry about anything. Don't worry about punctuation. You'll worry about that later. Don't worry about sentence structure. You'll worry about that later. You're just trying to get words down on the page to see where it can go. Once again, they get you moving. And then class, we're going to get into this thing. So, it says try free writing. If you have difficulty recalling a meaningful experience, spend this brainstorm and this free writing. Spend 15 minutes free writing. Simply writing without stopping whatever comes into your head. If you think you have nothing to say, write out, I don't have nothing to say, over and over again until you break out of that. They're going to come. Don't worry about spelling, punctuation, coherence. Just try and get some stuff on the page. And then what's on the page, I guarantee you, there'll be something in there that you'll say, did I write that? Did I write that? Once again, I don't remember writing that, but there's something there. I'm not saying, we're not trying to say, class, if it's good for any of us, me included, but we need to get something on the page. Always have to give ourselves, class, always have to give ourselves permission to write, right? We have to give ourselves permission to write. And then we'll go back and say, you know what? That could be the start of something. There's my essay right there. Once again, however it is, give yourself permission to be you. And then, and then be kind to yourself, class. You know what I mean? Be kind to yourself and realize, this is all a process. This is all a process. It's a process of getting things on the page and then in class cleaning it up. And it doesn't have to be, with a fancy pens or fancy papers, but it could be, it could be. Class, once again, anything that'll help you. See, if we look right here, this is kind of a trippy pen. What we see, man, look at that ink. Look at that ink. That's like blood. It's almost like a syringe, but it's a pen. You don't have to, nothing like this to get things on the page, but you could. It's a TWSBI 580 diamond. It's not a real expensive pen, but it's a trip. And it helps me. I took this one to Ireland quite a few years ago. 2 pens I took to Ireland, 2 fountain pens, because I know I had to get things done there. I was doing a reading at a university over in Cork, Ireland, and I had to get things down. So, once again, let's look at that ink. That's the thing of the gods. That's ink, man. That's what we get down on the page. Once again, to get things moving. You may work this way, you may not. You can. Let's see if that ink, a little bit of, that's some wild red orange ink in there. It's a custom ink from my own collection. Class. Enough of that. Whatever's going to help you. If you're not into that right now, you can think about it for the future. The tricks of that once again, the tools of the trade, class. Free writing. We free write. We get things on the page with all sorts of instruments. It could be a crayon. It could be a pencil. It could be a Montegrappa Italian-made fountain pen like this. I don't have a lot of fancy things in my life, but I'm down with my pens, class, and my journals, right? Because that's where the magic happens. And the pain happens too. Some pain in writing these class. Free write as fast as you can. Get it down. Be good to yourself. Give yourself permission to write poorly. If I've given myself permission for about 40 years to do it, you can do it too, right? It's kind of a nice color ink. Wondering if my computer's picking that up. It's from Germany. Pelican Reform Red, class, even though it's kind of pinkish looking. Class. Free write. Get it down on the page. Class, and so let's continue with this. So if you're still thinking about what you may want to write about, my job is to help you. You're brainstorming. A lot of my students in classes, they already knew, or they kind of knew, and I said, get on it, start hitting it. And I heard from some good students, other people are thinking about what they can. Let me give you some suggestions. Ask yourself this: did you ever break an important rule or rebel against authority? This is like a jumping off question to get you thinking about what you could write about. Did you ever break an important rule or rebel against authority? Did you learn anything from your actions? So you broke an important rule or you rebelled against authority. What did you learn from your action? Class, I don't know. Maybe you stole your mother's car. Maybe you rebelled against the principal at school. Maybe you rebelled against the cops. Maybe you had a fight with your dad at one time or something. I don't know. Or you broke an important rule. Did you learn anything from your actions? I've read some good essays over the years. I had a student write an essay about breaking curfew and getting arrested back, when they were young. They wrote me an essay about that. I had another student, a young woman, wrote me an essay about stealing a car and getting busted for that. She wrote me an essay about that. A young man who did school, who was like the perfect high school student, and then one day he ditched, and he went to a party at an abandoned house on a school day, senior year at Bel Air. And then the house wasn't abandoned. The next door neighbors called the cops, and the students all got arrested. Class, did you ever succumb to peer pressure? That's another thing that could be a start of an essay. Well, what's peer pressure? What were the results of going along with the crowd? What did you learn? Maybe, peer pressure. Maybe you ended up having some sort of sexual relationship that you didn't want to have, but you had it. What happened? You were pressured into it. You didn't feel ready. Or maybe, someone, you got drunk one night and you didn't want to get drunk. What happened? Was it devastating? Was it good? Maybe sometimes someone was pressuring you to smoke marijuana and you didn't want to smoke marijuana, but you did. And something happened that night. I don't know, class. Peer pressure. What were the results of going along with the crowd? What did you learn? What did you learn? So sometimes that's a spark for an essay, right? Now, and then also it talks about, class, let's talk about first. So positive things. Maybe the first time you had a spiritual experience. Maybe you haven't. That's all right. Sometimes people have them, I think, and they don't even know what's happening. But I don't know. I have questions. I had a student who wrote an incredible essay who had a powerful spiritual experience in the Catholic Church at Mass. A lot of times when I was at Mass as a kid, I was falling asleep. But he said he felt the power of the Holy Spirit hit him from the tabernacle, the body and blood of Jesus was in a Catholic Mass, and it fired him up. He wrote the essay, he felt the power of the Trinity, the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. He also felt the power of the Virgin Mother, our mother of all sorrows. Could he write about that? Yes. Would I tell him, no, you can't write about those things because they're not true? No, I'd never tell anyone that. I don't know, class. I believe, but it don't make any difference whether I believe or not. I believe in a lot of things. I had a student write an essay about being in a sweat lodge in the desert. Native American student, and had a spirit, it was a good essay, class. Powerful first, maybe the first time. Could you tell me about that football game that you won? Homecoming. Maybe your team didn't win any other games, but that year you were a senior and homecoming was packed. And you caught the winning touchdown. What a rush. Or you made an A on a math test. Or the day that you felt good about school because you were in band, and your band went to made all region. You won all region. You were blowing the saxophone or playing the violin. That's kind of a rush, class. Those are powerful things. Or maybe something big happened, something good happened on homecoming. Class, we're coming out of a challenging time with this coronavirus and everything. Life is good. We got to keep hope alive, class. A lot of powerful things. So the first time you felt love. About 5 years ago, I had a student in my class who was, I think he was 35 years old. This was before the pandemic. I liked him a lot. He was real serious. He'd been out of school a long time. He'd done some things with his life, but he wanted to come back and do school, so I ended up in my class. And he said, you know what, Mr. Walsh, I'll never forget his memoir. He said, I want to write about the night my Chihuahua died. Felipe the Chihuahua. Could I write about that, Mr. Walsh? I said, well, tell me about Felipe. He said, that dog lived to be 17, and I loved that dog more than I've loved anything in my life. More than my parents, more than my brother and sister, more than my grandparents, more than my ex-girlfriends. I loved Felipe, and he died. Can I write? I said, yes. He wrote me a beautiful essay, man. He was a careful writer, trying real hard in my class. He put us there in that night, in that home in the lower valley of El Paso, Texas, when Felipe died. It's a touching essay. He let us know in the end what he learned, the epiphany, like Gary Soto does. Gary Soto tells us he learned this. It was like, wow, that's heavy, Gary Soto. What'd you learn? I don't want to die a poor Mexican death. We've debated that in class before. Can he say that? He can say whatever he wants. He is Mexican American. And he decided all these things that he didn't want, that he saw the people trapped in the Valley Tire Factory down there in Glendale, California, next to LA, right? Jobs like that are great sometimes because, we've all, not all of us, but some of us have worked some tough jobs, and sometimes those jobs can be impetus to decide what we want in life. Gary Soto, we learned in that essay, didn't want to spend the rest of his life at the Valley Tire Factory because he worked really hard and was covered in dirt and wasn't making all that much money. He said everybody that worked there in some way were kind of humiliated. One of the reasons we go to college is to get, have a better life, have a better life. Tires are necessary, class, I've had some tough jobs. Too, I worked at the Valley Tire Factory. Spent 10 years at Safeway, the supermarket, on a graveyard stock crew, and later on a grocery checker stocking shelves, trying to put myself through college, right? I was talking to a student today, junior and senior year. I was taking a full load of classes at the university, and I had two jobs. Why did I have two jobs? I came from a family where I had to make my own way. I was hustling. I was young. I had energy. I could do it. I can still do some hustling class. First, can you write about it? The time you won that basketball tournament, or maybe the time you got hurt playing basketball, right? Like my son did a couple years ago at El Paso High. Thank God he's come through with 2 ACL surgeries. I think one of the highlights of my life was watching him play basketball since the time he was a kid. And I love him. He's come through it. Class. Did you ever regard a person in a certain way and then have to change your opinion of him or her? Maybe it was one time I had this student who was going on and on and on about her aunt was the greatest aunt in the world. She's the most successful aunt in the world. Everyone in the family loved her. And then all of a sudden, she sees her on the news that she held up a liquor store in an armed robbery. Class, I was kind of a letdown on my student. She had no idea. So she regarded a person a certain way and had to change her opinion of her. Maybe that happened with a teacher. Maybe that happened with a relative. I don't know. Right? Could you write a memoir about it? Have you? Oh man, let's do this. So any of those things, class, you could think about it. How about I've had students write essays about, once again, finding out they were pregnant. That's a beautiful thing, class, unless it isn't. Sometimes a person can be pregnant and not want to be pregnant. No matter what happens, you're at the crossroads. The crossroads. Do I have the baby? Do I not have the baby? What am I going to do now? Can you write about that? I have a student already this semester who told me she's going to put us in the hospital. Going to drop us in the hospital when she had her child, class. It's a big deal. Having a kid's a big deal, right? Big deal certainly for the woman, real big deal. It can be a big deal for the man too. It was for me when both my kids were born. Class. Something good. Maybe the first time you felt love. Maybe when you got married. Maybe when someone broke up with you. Maybe, something happened. Something tough happened, right? Something happened one night when you were in a blackout. All these things, good and bad. Sometimes we think that something's tough at one time could be the catalyst for a brand new you. We don't know. Today I was in class, I was telling students about, my first essay I got back in college was a D-, just this much above an F. Class, that changed my life because I knew that semester I just started school. I was 23 years old. I knew I needed help. And I knew I needed to work. And I knew that I needed to clean up my writing and I needed to practice. Now, if that professor just put an A on my paper like some of your teachers did in the past, it wouldn't have helped me at all. He was a hard ass, man. God, I remember him like it yesterday, Dr. Clarence Brown at El Camino in the South Bay of Los Angeles. That man changed my life because I got a D-. Next essay was a B-. Maybe one of the big days of my life, I realized, wow, man, maybe I can do this. Next semester after that, I took a journalism class. I said, I kind of dig writing, I may not be the best, but I'm making some improvement. Could you write about that? Have you ever been appalled by witnessing an act of prejudice or insensitivity? I hope that never happens to you, class. Chances are it might. Sure happened to me a lot growing up, right? Sure happened to me a lot. But it can go either way, right? It happened to me because, I was just the wrong color in the wrong neighborhood at the wrong time, but that was all right. When there's a white boy, let's kill him. Let's kill the white boy. Fact of life, having a fight, getting stabbed, going through the gang wars, It's all right. It's a challenging time. Made me who I am. Class, maybe you saw someone get picked on because they were fat. Or maybe someone, they didn't like you because you were the wrong color. I don't know. Maybe you left El Paso and someone didn't like you. I don't know. Can you write about it? These things hurt me to even talk about it, class, but it can happen. The thing that my hope always is that a person can heal if something happens like that, and I believe a person can. Sometimes it's hard, but sometimes somebody tell me, I had this bad experience with this dude. Now I think that all white people are awful. They're not. Or I had this experience with this black guy and that kind of soured me. Or black guy said, I had a bad experience with some white folks. Class is hard. It's hard for me to even talk about these things, but if it happened to you, you can write about it, class. I believe life has got to be, people are good inherently at heart. I believe also right now, I believe that we're in a time where what I want to see, it doesn't make any difference what I want to see. I want the nation to come together. I always have, all this divisiveness stuff. Because I can talk that, I can engage in that debate. I can talk about race. I can talk about culture. I can talk about the ghetto. Because I grew up in it. I can talk about these things. I want the nation to come together, I want America to be strong. I want us to love each other. I really do, I really do. I think we're all right. Class, some of you are not young enough to remember this, but man, the 1960s, I was a young kid, 60s, early 70s, they were tough too, a lot tougher. Some people say almost than now. It was just hard, We had Vietnam. I went through the Watts riots. I went through the Rodney King riots. There were riots all over the cities. It was a tough time, JFK got murdered. I was a kid when that happened. Robert Kennedy got murdered. I was a kid for that. Martin Luther King got murdered. I saw all this stuff, Plus the Vietnam War, which ended my sophomore year in high school, class. Been tough times in America. Civil War was tough. America's going to be strong and get through it all. I know it. I feel good. Those times I think we're tougher than we had now. COVID was tough. We're coming out of it. Can you write about that? One of those things. Was there ever a moment in your life when you decided to reform, to adopt a whole new outlook on life? How would you characterize your attempt? Successful, unsuccessful, laughable, painful? 2 years ago, a student wrote me an essay of when she woke up in the hospital and she'd been doing a lot of ecstasy, a lot of drinking. She's in a lot of pain. I think she's doing some cocaine too, if I remember in the essay. And she woke up in the hospital. She had OD'd. And it was a beautiful essay because in the hospital, she decided it's over. I'm done with this life. And I'm going to start a whole new life. And she wrote me an essay about that night of what was going on, and then her blackout, and then her ending up in the hospital. And then she was back in my class taking English 1301. She was serious. She said, Mr. Welsh, I want this. I said, if you want it, I want it. I'm only here to help. Write me that essay, clean up your work. Let's try and get you through the class. She could write too. Some people can't. and they need work. But it's all good. It's all going to come down to you. What are you going to do? Class, I had another student who one time told me that he wrote me an essay because he's trying to quit drinking. He was young, you know, and he said, it's killing me. It's killing me. He was in my class about 28. He said his liver was messed up, and he was wrote me an essay about realizing that he couldn't drink. And I said, you know what? Welcome to the club. Some of us can, some of us can't. I never could do it too successfully myself. He said, Mr. Welsh, you know what? I want to write this about that. I said, well, have you quit? He said, you know what, man? You told me I haven't had a drink in 7 months. I said, God bless you. Not everybody's going to have to do that, but if you're in the beginning stages of cirrhosis of the liver, that's most probably a good thing. I said, you know what, you're on the right track, man. Hang with the winners, they say. You know what it's like to, almost drink yourself to death. Let's see you get sober. I like that student a lot. He wrote me a beautiful essay. I said, you know what, it's just one of those things. Some people can hit it, some can't. Some people are going to hit it right to the grave, and sometimes an early grave, No shame in that. 7 months sober and kicking ass in my class. So class, I hope that helps. That's a bunch of different suggestions for you. You may have something that's completely different, but once again, focus. 700 to 1,000 words, double spaced. I'll send you this essay that showed you how it's going to be formatted. First draft, final draft, writing center verification. Have fun with these. Be good to yourself. Do the best that you can. We get those in on those deadline dates, and we'll start moving on to the next segment of study. If you have a question, hit me up. I answer my through Blackboard messages. I've been helping with students like that. And with that said, class, let me look at my to-do list. I think we're done for the night. Or I should say the day. Let me post this. Let's see, we did that. Yeah, good. Okay, class, well, very good. Well, I'll leave you as the Irish always say, they don't say mucho gusto, but they could. It's the same thing. They do if they speak Spanish. They say good luck. I'm wishing you well, class, and once again, have a nice weekend, and good luck with these. Make deadline, and be good to yourself and kind to yourself, and have a great weekend. That's it. Take care.